Mr. Richards, the story that brought us here today actually began in 1992. I think you mentioned you came here first time in August 1992, day after the Vietnamese was burnt. Can you tell us what do you remember from that time? What did you feel at that time? What brought you here actually?
Well, I was a photojournalist working for a French news agency, French-American news agency called Gamma Liaison. And I made a trip here because I was very interested in what was taking place in Bosnia, and particularly the siege of Sarajevo. So I arrived in Kiselja the evening before when Vietnamese was hit. And so when I first drove into Sarajevo was the very next morning. And I remember very, very clearly that as I drove into the city from, I think it was through Stoop, and we saw there was still smoke in the air, and you could hear the shooting, and I thought, my God, it's like I've entered hell, because there were a lot of grenades still going on. There were a couple of trams that were still burning, not burning, sorry, there was smoke in the air, but there were trams that were destroyed along the tracks, and nothing was going anywhere, and I knew that things were pretty bad.
What did you know about Sarajevo, Bosnia in general before you came here?
I did not know that much actually. I always try to read up a little bit and to do some history checking before I go into any place, because as a photojournalist quite often you go into places. At the time when I was working primarily as a photojournalist, you go to places where if news breaks out in a very short time, you don't get all the information you need. But for Bosnia, I managed to do a little bit of history and a little bit of homework before I came in. And but things are not always what they seem.
Yes. Yeah, you spent almost 4 years here in Sarajevo. What would you like to point out as a moment of sadness, happiness, doesn't matter. Any moment you would like to point out during the siege of Sarajevo?
For me, it was, there were so many moments like that. I would have to say that it's very hard to pick them, but one of them that I particularly remember was being downtown and near the Holiday Inn. And there was a sniper who was shooting from the hills. And not only was this guy, he was like he was playing with people. It wasn't, you got the sense that there was somebody who was getting a lot of happiness from just terrifying people. Because I remember an old woman, she didn't understand what was happening, and she walked in the intersection and there was a policeman telling her, no, go back, go back. The sniper didn't shoot her, but he started playing with her. He started firing the bullets around her as if he was playing a joke, and she got very confused. And I was sitting on the other side. I had just happened to be walking, because I walked everywhere basically. And that was when I realized that there was something really, really wrong, even more, with the guys up on the hill who were shooting.
Yes. I spoke with Ron Havi a few weeks ago, and he said that he was, I don't know how to describe it, unhappy because his photos didn't have any impact at all during the siege of Sarajevo. He meant on a reaction of, I don't know, Western world. What about your photos? Did you feel the same?
I think that Ron is right in the sense that he's right, and at the same time, I do think, even though there was no immediate reaction because the siege kept going on even when people knew what was happening, but I think there was more of a cumulative effect because people kept reporting, people kept coming back and forth. A lot of people began to become more informed, and there became a time when the politicians couldn't turn their backs anymore because there was just so much. It became too embarrassing for them to walk away. So in that sense, if you want to look at the work as an immediate thing happening, it was a failure in that sense. But in terms of over a period of time, I think it did contribute to action. In the long run, what it has led to is the fact that whenever there's denial about certain things, events that were documented, the people who are there to document them mostly are still around and who can stand witness and say, no, this is not exactly right. We have the record to show what happened.
So you left Sarajevo in 1996. When you spoke with your friends, family in USA about what happened here in Bosnia, were they actually aware of what was going on here?
I used to go back and forth between the US and Bosnia, and for a period of time I was even working for the Associated Press. During that period of time I was in South America. Between 94 to 96 I would come back and forth, but I think that people saw what was happening on the televisions every day in the United States, but they didn't understand what was going on. So even now people don't have any idea really what took place. And that's one of the reasons why I think I'm looking to make this film. And I kept making this film was, I think after 20 years after the war, I think we are in a position now where we have a little bit of room to be able to look at what happened and to maybe try to figure it out. Although I'm not really sure it's possible to really understand everything.
Yes. Before your film, you actually published a book about Bosnia, about siege of Sarajevo. What could we read from that book?
The writing in that book, a lot of it was based on my reports. I did some special reports for the Washington Post, the Miami Herald, and also my photography. When I sat down to write that book, I tried to do with every photograph that I would write something personal with it and my personal feelings. So I think what you can probably learn from this book is maybe how I felt at that moment and the thoughts that came back behind the pictures. And some of the pictures are very factual, and some of them have my thoughts and my feelings.
Which picture would you point out from the period of siege of Sarajevo? Which one would you point out?
Which one would I point out?
For any reason.
There's a picture that I took of a young lady, her name is Sanda Skrebic. And Sanda, for many years I didn't know who was in that picture. And out of the blue last November I got an email saying, hello, this is the girl in your photograph. And I was so happy because that was one of the pictures that I was really, really curious about. Who was it? I have many photographs that I would hear after the war from different people, but that was one of them. I always wondered who that girl was. For me, that photograph showed the spirit of the city. The fact that there was no running water, there was no electricity, nothing. Yet people would still try to dress their best, put on their best clothes, and still kept going to work. And to me it was an act of defiance. It was saying, well, you can shoot at me, you can bomb me, you can starve me, but you're not going to defeat my spirit. So that's what that photograph means to me.
So actually you had a chance to find out how do children from your photos actually look like 20 years after the photos were made.
Yes.
Did you have a chance to meet one of them?
Yes, a few of them. I'm still hoping to meet some of the others. But it's always a very amazing thing, because as a photojournalist, as a photographer, when you do this kind of work, you're always hoping that it's going to touch somebody and it's going to mean something. When these pictures went out, for the most part, when they're published, you don't hear back, and then after a long time, as time passes, they becomes even more of a mystery. So when you start to hear back, it's always a wonderful thing.
So your documentary actually is carrying a symbolic name, Sarajevo Roses. Why did you decide to give that name?
I chose that name when I started making the film, which was in the late 1990s. I think I could say that from '92 I was trying to put together a body of work, and then as time progressed I decided to add film to it. The name Sarajevo Roses for me was because it was a symbol of roses are something really beautiful. A red roses there, but the roses on the pavement were a symbol of horror as well. So it's almost as if it had a double meaning, something beautiful but something really, really horrible. And I thought that that was the name that would kind of tell the story. So there's never been any other possibility of another
Yes.
title.
Yes, my generation is probably one of the last who actually remembers what happened here in Sarajevo during the siege. Younger generations don't know, actually older are already forgetting what actually happened. Is that something that motivated you to make this documentary? Beside that you wanted to present it to the other countries, other people who actually didn't know anything about what happened here in Sarajevo?
That was part of it, because I was working on this film, and as you know, for a long time when you're working on a film, it takes a lot of energy. There are times where you have ups and you have downs, but I think in my mind there was never any doubt that I had to finish this film. And over the years, as I would keep hearing from the young people who had a lot of questions, and sometimes they had questions that they could not ask the older, people, their parents, and people who went through the siege, because they were dealing with their own questions. So the ones who were young kids, tiny kids, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, even 10, they had many, many questions. So I would hear from them, and it was like they would want to know what it was like. So I felt a sense of responsibility to try and say to them, well, this is what it was like, this is what happened. And so in that sense, it's like I don't have a choice. My work here started in 1992, and I think it's an obligation. It's something, it's a responsibility to keep going.
Can you tell us some specifics about your documentary actually? It's a story actually of one man from Sarajevo, a doctor from Sarajevo. It's from his point of view actually.
Well, the film has several different characters. The first character that we were working on was Dr. Asim Haracic. And Dr. Haracic is an amazing guy. He not only was he on the front lines here, but he was also one of the heroes up at Kosovo. And then he went with his family to the United States and he started over. And he retrained, apart from being emergency medicine, he retrained to be able to figure out what the thoughts are behind how to recover from war trauma. And so he used what happened to him to help other people, and he also used his own music. In addition to that, we have a few other people in the film who are also characters in the film, because we've been trying to tell the story through different people. And because after a while I thought that there are so many different points of view over a long period of time, it's maybe good to do that. And so the film has a few different people in there apart from Dr. Haracic. But Dr. Haracic is the one who brings and puts everything together, because he has the ability to look back on what happened and to be able to look at it with experience, but also from an understanding of studying human nature.
So when are we going to have a chance to see your movie actually? I think you said next year.
Next year. We are finishing our production over the next few months, including filming, interviews, everything, and then our plan is to go into post-production later in this fall, and we will be going on to start editing until spring. So that's what we hope to do. But I would I'd like to ask one more thing though. This film is not supported, I should say it's supported mainly by our friends, our fans, all the people who want to see this film made. It's very difficult to make a film nowadays as an independent. So I would like to ask anybody who's interested in our film just to go to our website, SarajevoRoses.com, and consider supporting the film.
So I have to ask you one more question actually.
Sure.
you are connected with Bosnia in other way, not only professional way. You said you have 2 children that are half Bosnian, half American.
Yes, 2 of my children are connected to Bosnia. They are, I should say, children of Sarajevo too. They're children of America. They're Americans 100%, but their heritage is also from Bosnia. They have grandparents, their mom, everybody, they're all from Bosnia. So they've been here many times, and I'm very proud of them. So this film is also the big personal part of it, I would say, apart from my own professional motivation, is because this film is a part of their heritage. It's very important that when they get a little bit older, that they can look back and they can understand what took place, because Sarajevo is a part of them too.
How much do they know at the moment?
They know quite a lot. They know what their father did. And my daughter is Sabrina. She is 18 now, and I like to think that she understands a lot of what I did, and I think that I hope that she will understand even more in the future. Because
I believe you're a relevant person to answer this question. I know almost 20 years passed since the end of the war. What do you feel about the development of the city in that time? How much did Sarajevo change actually during that time?
If you looked at Sarajevo after the war and then you look at it now physically, it's completely a complete change. But there is still a lot of work to do, and there's still a lot of work to try and help the people to be able to move beyond, because this system of government and is just not helping it. It's not helping everybody, and I think a very, very, very it's very important for the leaders to take a look at where they want their country to be, and to think beyond just today, because the future generations are going to be looking back to see exactly what they did. So they need to do something.
Change it, yes. What about person and their personality? About people and their personalities, actually. We here like to say that we were better as a person during the war than we are now. What do you think about that?
I think that when you're in war, it's about everything else that's unimportant in your life falls away, and you get to see who people really are. The really good people, if they're good inside, it comes out. If there's something bad in somebody, that's going to come out. You cannot hide it. War, it strips away all the masks.